It's absolutely real. I'm telling you, apply the same scientific principles that they espouse to that film and tell me it isn't real. Don't forget, science is an attitude.
They came for peace and met something primal. A growl in the dark. A shadow at the window. These aren't just stories. These are real encounters.
I just freaked. So then I jumped back into the bed and put the blanket over my head.
With something that's not supposed to exist. Stay close. You're about to meet the campers who came face to face with Bigfoot. Deep in the forests of North America, beyond the trails, past the hilltops, and tucked in the shadows of tall pines, something moves. For decades, people have told stories, tales whispered around fires, passed down through families. Most brush them off. But what if those stories were true? These are the real-life encounters of ordinary people, campers, hikers, researchers, who found themselves face to face with the unknown. They went into the woods for peace, for solitude, for adventure. What they found was something watching. Let me take you deep into the heart of East Texas, where pine trees stand like ancient guards and the woods stretch for miles without a soul in sight. It was supposed to be just another day for Jeff Stewart, an experienced hunter and outdoorsman. He's no stranger to the wild. He's lived it, breathed it. But nothing could prepare him for what he saw out there. Jeff was on his own land, out in the middle of nowhere, when he grabbed his gear, his rifle and his camera, and headed down a familiar trail. Just another quiet walk in the woods. The air was calm, not even a bird call, just eerie silence. And then, it happened.
And on the ground was this creature. 5 feet behind me. I reach back to grab my gun. It's human looking. So I let go of the rifle, grab the camera, take the lens cap off, and it takes off running.
Suddenly, a loud crash came from behind him. It sounded like a big tree had been slammed to the ground. Startled, Jeff spun around, and there it was, not 20 feet away, maybe less. A massive creature had just landed. No warning, no time to think. It wasn't a bear, it wasn't a man, it was something in between. Standing upright, this thing was huge, well over 7 feet tall. Thick, dark hair matted its body. The skin on its face was rough, almost leathery. The eyes, oh God, the eyes. They weren't wild, they were focused, intelligent, almost human.
Middle of the day.
Well, such close encounters are practically unheard of. So, using this opportunity, what did you notice about its face?
There was no visible hair in the face or on the face anywhere other than around the mouth. There was very, very fine, what I would call baby hair.
Jeff reached for his rifle instinctively, but froze. He said it wasn't fear that stopped him, it was disbelief. The creature looked directly at him, not with rage, but with this eerie calmness, like it was trying to decide something. Then, instinct kicked in. Jeff yanked the lens cap off his camera and started snapping photos. The creature took off, and Jeff chased it, barely believing what he was doing. He managed to capture blurry shots as it weaved through the trees with impossible speed.
And I snapped pictures.
Do you have those with you?
Yes, I do.
Awesome.
There it is right there.
Yeah, it is a blob squatch indeed, but there's something there.
And this is the photo of the foot.
Later, Jeff showed the photos to the host. Grainy, yes, but enough to see that whatever it was real. Long arms, broad chest, hair thick like wet wool. Its nose was wide and flat, and its mouth stretched almost ear to ear when it moved, exposing large, flat teeth. Nothing like a predator's, but still wrong. He described its smell, too, like a wet dog mixed with rotting wood and earth. The kind of stench that sticks in your throat. Jeff's been in the woods his whole life. He's hunted, tracked, scouted. But he says he'll never forget that thing, the way it moved, the way it looked at him. It wasn't just passing through. I watched it, waiting. And now, he never walks that trail alone again. Now let's switch coasts, way out in Georgia, on a warm, clear night lit by a full moon. The kind of night that should feel peaceful, safe. But for Jamie Wilkerson, it turned into a nightmare. It was around 11:30 p.m. when her boyfriend dropped her off at the top of a long dirt road that led to her house. It's the kind of place where the trees lean in close, where the light barely touches the ground. Jamie started walking, alone. The only sound was the gravel crunching beneath her shoes. Then, crack. Something heavy stepped into the woods behind her. She stopped, listened, silence. She kept walking, a little faster now, and then she heard it again, this time closer. Heavy steps, deliberate. Something was following her, keeping pace, just out of sight. She glanced over her shoulder, and that's when she saw it. About 10 feet behind her, half shrouded by the trees, was a creature straight out of a nightmare. It looked like a gorilla at first, huge, bulky, walking upright.
I was walking all the way down to my house, and I heard a big, loud, heavy animal. It looked like a big gorilla.
But the more she stared, the more wrong it looked. It had long arms, almost dragging the ground. The chest was broad like a linebacker. Its face was partly in shadow, but the eyes, they shone in the moonlight. Reflective. Not like an animal, more like a person with no soul. Jamie froze, clutching the cross around her neck. She whispered a prayer, any prayer. Then she turned and walked faster, resisting every urge to break into a sprint.
And I just turned around, grabbed my necklace, and just prayed, please, God. I just knew that it was something to get away from.
She could hear it behind her, the slow, steady thud of feet on dirt, not running, not growling, just following. She said it was like it wanted her to know it was there, that it could catch her any second, but chose not to. Jamie didn't look back again.
I moved all the way over to that side of the road, and then I walked maybe 10 feet down, turned to look behind me. It was just following me with its head, just all the way down the road. And I just turned around and never looked back.
She kept her eyes forward, focused on the soft glow of her porch light through the trees. Every step felt like it took hours. Her breath came in short gasps. And the air? It felt heavier the closer it got. When she finally reached her house, she slammed the door shut, locked every window, and stood in the hallway shaking. Her hands wouldn't stop trembling. She peeked out later. Nothing. But that feeling never left. She described the creature's features later on, and it's horrifying.
You could clearly make out the whole silhouette of it. You could tell that it was shoulders coming forward.
The head was too large for its body, almost swollen. Its shoulders hunched unnaturally. The fur was long, shaggy, caked in mud, and its mouth slightly open. No sound, just the faint glimmer of yellow teeth beneath a lipless grin. It didn't attack, it didn't charge, but somehow, that made it worse. Jamie says she never walks alone at night anymore. That road, she avoids it like the plague, because she knows something's out there, and it saw her. 2 different states, 2 very different people, but the same terrifying message. Bigfoot isn't just a campfire story. It's out there, watching, moving silently through the woods. And when it decides to show itself, it doesn't need to roar or chase. It just appears, calm, patient, like it's been waiting. So if you ever find yourself walking through the woods alone, listen, watch the tree line. Because when the forest goes quiet, you're not alone, and whatever's out there already knows where you are. The clock strikes 12:23 a.m. The dense forests of Wisconsin are cloaked in darkness. the canopy above swallowing any residual light.
It's gonna look for prints.
Larry and I were talking about prints in the mud and like wondering if prints in the mud only happen on accident.
The air is thick with anticipation. As Matt Moneymaker, Bobo, and Larry Dopke, seasoned members of the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, BFRO,
I think they may happen on purpose sometimes.
Well, I don't step in mud because I don't like to have muddy feet.
embark on a nocturnal expedition. Their mission to uncover evidence of the elusive Sasquatch. Armed with flashlights, recording equipment, and an unwavering determination, they delve deeper into the woods, their senses heightened with every step.
They don't blink.
Barefoot or not? You don't think so?
They avoid mud because they don't want to leave tracks, not because they care about stepping in mud.
Yeah, but on other occasions, they might purposefully leave tracks.
As they navigate the uneven terrain, the trio discusses recent findings, unusual footprints, broken branches, and distant howls that defy explanation. The forest, silent yet alive, seems to watch their every move. They try to get a reaction by copying sounds they think Bigfoot might make. They laugh while trying different noises, clearly enjoying each other's company, even though it's a little scary.
Remember how you used to do the yoo-hoo?
Yeah.
Like a real sultry, beckoning, loud yoo-hoo.
First of all, yoo-hoo is not sultry, but I'll do a yoo-hoo.
Well,
Then, out of nowhere, a loud, high sound breaks the silence of the night. The laughter fades, replaced by a tense silence. The forest responds with an eerie stillness, as if holding its breath. Determined to investigate further, Matt proposes the inchworm technique, a methodical approach where team members leapfrog each other to cover more ground while maintaining stealth.
about 100 yards, I will snap for you, then you guys can go past me again. The inchworm is when one part moves ahead first and then stops, and then the other part catches up.
Matt: I'll go ahead about 500 yards. Once I signal, you guys move past me. We'll keep doing this pattern. This strategy allows them to advance deeper into the woods without alerting potential creatures to their presence.
That way. That's not a loon. Doesn't sound like a loon. Doesn't sound like the coyote noise that was made.
Each movement is calculated, each pause filled with anticipation. As they proceed, the forest begins to reveal its secrets. Faint rustlings, distant knocks, and fleeting shadows suggest they are not alone. The team remains vigilant, documenting every anomaly.
Sticks dragging across each other.
Shh, listen. Listen.
Shh. Hold on. Did you hear that, Matt?
The realization sends a chill down their spines. The possibility that a Sasquatch is observing them becomes increasingly plausible. As dawn approaches, the team regroups, reflecting on the night's events. While they didn't capture definitive evidence,
Area where a Bigfoot would feel very comfortable because there's a zillion places where it can be out of view very quickly.
the experience reinforces their belief in the existence of Bigfoot. The Wisconsin woods hold many secrets, and for Matt, Bobo, and Larry, this night adds another chapter to their ongoing quest. Their dedication exemplifies the human spirit's relentless pursuit of the unknown, reminding us that some mysteries are worth chasing, even in the darkest of nights.
Imitate Matt's coyote. It was definitely odd.
I think there's something up here, man. There's so many little tidbits here and there over the last couple years in particular.
It was the end of summer, the kind of warm, quiet night that wraps the forest in stillness. Joe Coca and Vanessa Gutierrez wanted to squeeze in one last camping trip before the season changed. They picked a private spot in the New Mexico wilderness, parked their vehicle, set up camp, and let the night fall around them. The air was cool, stars blanketed the sky, and the forest was calm. Peaceful, almost too peaceful.
Sasquatch they encountered that night, that's also super important because that's another report from that same cluster, that same area.
They eventually fell asleep in their vehicle, comforted by the soft sounds of nature around them. But at 1:30 in the morning, that calm shattered. Joe woke up suddenly. Something had touched the front of their car. He felt a soft thump and heard it through the metal. At first he thought it might be a curious animal, maybe a deer or a raccoon, but then it moved.
It makes its way around the vehicle where we have all of our food.
I saw a tall, dark, broad figure, and it just walked right up against the truck.
The sound of something heavy brushing past the side of the car, slow, deliberate. It wasn't scampering or scurrying, it walked, on 2 feet, and it was circling them. Joe held his breath. Vanessa sat up too, eyes wide, listening. She looked out the window, and that's when she saw it. A tall, broad figure, just barely illuminated by the faint moonlight filtering through the trees. It was huge, its frame blocking part of the woods behind it. No fur patterns, no clothes, just dark, towering, human-like, but not human.
She starts crying. She says, I want to get out of here now. So I jump in the front seat and we pull out and head towards Highway 4.
Vanessa's voice trembled as she whispered, I saw it. She started to cry, pure panic setting in. It wasn't on 4 legs. It was standing, 2 feet. It wasn't an animal, it wasn't human either. Joe knew they couldn't stay.
My whole life, so I've heard lots of animals, and when it walked by, it wasn't like a 4-legged animal. It was standing upright, walking, you know.
He quickly got into the driver's seat, grabbed the keys, and started the car. The headlights turned on, and for a moment they saw a shadow move past. They didn't look back. The tires kicked up dirt as they sped down the road, headlights lighting up the trees, their hearts beating fast with fear. They didn't stop until they hit the highway, miles away from the campsite. Silence filled the car. Shock, disbelief, and that heavy question neither of them could shake. What the hell did we just see?
Numerous accounts by people that say Sasquatches come into campsites and go through their food. We're gonna try to figure out the size of this prowler by putting Vanessa in the same position she was that night when she saw the thing.
To this day, Joe and Vanessa remain shaken by the encounter. Neither one believes it was a bear or mountain lion. It was too tall, too upright, and too deliberate. The way it moved, the way it watched them. It felt intelligent, a predator, but one not from any field guide or textbook. Bigfoot? Sasquatch? Something else entirely?
About there.
Right about here?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm gonna raise my hand up, and when my hand reaches the level where you think the thing's shoulders were, yell stop.
Okay. Stop.
Okay.
6'3".
Top of the shoulders, 6'3".
Maybe some questions don't have answers. But one thing's for sure, Joe and Vanessa won't ever camp in those woods again. And after hearing their story, would you? It was the last day at hunt camp. The sun was high, casting golden beams through the dense canopy of trees. Birds chirped overhead. The forest was quiet, too quiet. No wind, no elk, just stillness, like the woods were holding their breath. One of the hunters, an experienced outdoorsman, decided to set up his blind near an old elk wallow, a muddy depression where bulls often roll and thrash to mark their scent. It was the perfect spot, or so he thought. He sat patiently, surrounded by thick trees and tall whispering grass. The forest had that midday calm, the kind that makes you feel like you're the only one alive for miles. But little did he know, he wasn't alone. No elk showed up, not a single snap of a branch or distant bugle. Just silence, until something moved. Less than 30 feet away, a massive figure stepped into view, upright, powerful, and completely out of place in the peaceful scenery. The hunter froze, his eyes widened. He wasn't looking at a bear, or a moose, or any creature known to this forest. It was walking on 2 legs, towering, broad-shouldered, its limbs too long, its gait too smooth to be human. The thing was covered in dark, matted hair, blending almost perfectly into the shadows. But the sunlight caught just enough to expose muscle, mass, and movement. The hunter instinctively raised his camera, hands shaking, but managed to catch clear footage. He whispered, "What is that?" Barely able to believe what he was seeing. The beast didn't seem scared. In fact, it looked like it had been watching him all along. At exactly 2:21 p.m., as he stepped out of the blind to inspect the area, his boots crunched into something strange in the mud. Tracks, big ones, nearly twice the size of a man's foot. Deep impressions, clear, unmistakable toes. The stride was too long to be a person faking it. His heart pounded in his chest. He crouched low, tracing the print with his finger, the size and depth sending chills up his spine. This wasn't just an encounter. It was evidence. A single question echoed in his head. Was that Bigfoot? The forest had returned to silence, but it felt different now, like something just beneath the surface was watching, waiting. He packed up slowly, eyes scanning the trees, every crack of a twig behind him making his skin crawl. He left that forest with more than just footage. He left with a story, one that blurred the line between myth and reality. And though he made it out safely, he'll never forget the moment he locked eyes with something not meant to be found. Would you? It was back in 2012. Me and my brother Ben had planned a weekend escape. Just two brothers, some beers, and the hope of catching a little more than fish stories, maybe even a Bigfoot sighting. We had pitched our tent near Lower Lewis Falls, deep in Washington state. The roar of the falls was constant, loud, relentless, and honestly, we didn't expect much Bigfoot activity because of all the noise. If anything was out there, it would have had to scream just to be heard. But that didn't stop us. We were out by the fire, burgers sizzling, the smell of smoke and meat mixing with the pine. It was around 8 p.m., the sun just dipped below the trees, casting long shadows. Everything had this orange glow, warm, safe. And then it changed.
On the other side of the Lewis River, we hear this, "Oh!" And then the other campsites that were occupied, like there was people in their tents at that time, and then it was like boom, 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 boom. Like everybody was turning their lights on in the tent after hearing that. And it was extremely exciting.
Sudden silence, sound of fire crackling, wind rustling trees. Out of nowhere, from across the river, this growl. Not an ordinary animal growl. This was deep, long, and loud enough to rise over the roar of the falls. That shouldn't have been possible. It was so powerful you felt it before you even heard it fully. Me and Ben froze. Everybody came out of their camps, grabbing the flashlights, scanning across the water. Beams of light shot out in every direction. The air was thick, buzzing with adrenaline and confusion.
Once it stood up after, you could see 2/3 is in the upper extremities, but down below, just the way that it moved, turned, repositioned, effortless, like it was just no problem. And at one point, I remember initially I'm snapping my fingers trying to get Cliff Barrickman's attention. Cliff! And because we had people near us and he couldn't hear me. He was putting stuff back in the truck.
I'll be honest, part of me was terrified, but another part was excited. That growl wasn't a bear. It wasn't a cougar. It wasn't any animal I've ever known in these woods, and I've hiked them my whole life. This was different. It was inhuman. It sounded intelligent, like a warning. We stood there, scanning, waiting, breathing heavy. But it never came closer. It didn't need to. Whatever it was, it made its point. It wanted us to know it was out there. That night, sleep didn't come easy. Every rustle in the brush made us sit up. Every crack of a twig sounded like thunder. But the creature never showed itself again. It was daylight, but that didn't bring any comfort. The forest was quiet, too quiet. Long, towering trees loomed overhead, their branches bare, some cracked and fallen, littering the steep, snow-dusted ground. The kind of scene where your breath shows in the air and every sound echoes. 2 weeks. That's how long we'd been watching. 2 weeks of silence, of waiting. After authorities had extracted human remains from a remote location deep in this forest, what looked like a stash site, we knew something else had to be out there. Something that didn't just pass through, but owned this place. And finally, on April 11, 2024, we got it. A trail cam, positioned on a ridge above the old shelter site, was triggered, and what it captured sent chills through everyone on the team. A tall, broad-shouldered figure stepped out from behind a broken tree. Covered in dark, shaggy fur, its limbs heavy and unnaturally long. Its movements were slow but full of purpose, like it knew we were watching. It paused, looked around, and then, as if to make a statement, it grabbed one of the thickest branches on the ground, almost the size of a log, and smashed it into the dirt. The crack echoed through the trees like a warning shot. This wasn't random. This wasn't fear. This was dominance. That thing wasn't hiding. It wasn't running. It was reclaiming territory. And it wasn't just any stretch of woods. It was the same area where Donald Big Calf's remains had been found. If you've seen the footage from Bigfoot attack in the Canadian Rockies, you know the story. You know the horror of that find. Now we were staring at the possible culprit. Not a bear, not a man, something other. Its back was hunched, its silhouette massive. Even from a distance, you could tell. This thing had power, ancient, raw power. And it knew these woods better than any of us ever could. Then, just as quickly as it had come, it vanished, blending into the trees, into the shadows. Since then, not a single sighting, no fresh prints, no movement on cams, no noise, gone, but not forgotten. Some say it's waiting, watching, lurking just out of reach until someone crosses the line again. Others believe it left for good, but one thing's for sure. This is no legend anymore. It left behind bones. It left behind terror. And now, it left behind proof. So the question is, if this beast decides to return again, will we be ready, or will someone else disappear into these woods and never come back? It was just past midnight. Cristina Arculeta lives deep in the forests of New Mexico, where silence runs thick and the night hides more than shadows. That evening felt off. She couldn't explain it. There was no wind, no crickets, not even the rustle of leaves. Just a stillness that crept beneath your skin. Between 12 and 1 a.m., Cristina was in bed, half asleep, when she suddenly felt something. A gut instinct, that primal nudge that says, "You're not alone." She sat up, heart racing, and walked over to the window. And that's when she saw it.
It was between 12, 1 o'clock in the morning. I stood up and I glanced straight at the window. Something extremely large was in the window. I just freaked.
Right there, outside her window, was a massive beast, just standing there watching her. Its broad shoulders blocked the moonlight. Its eyes reflected something otherworldly. Not curiosity, not confusion, something darker. She froze. "It was huge," she later whispered, tears in her voice. "It was like nothing I've ever seen before. I couldn't scream. I couldn't move. My body just shut down. In sheer panic, she threw herself back into her bed, yanking the blankets over her head like a child trying to hide from a monster. But this wasn't a nightmare. This was real.
Look as if it were leaning forward because its head was here.
Could have been a human in the window.
If it were Andre the Giant, I would have to say, yeah, maybe there was a possibility.
Well, why don't we go inside and leave Renee out here, and we can kind of gauge how big this thing was and all that.
Okay.
Okay.
It stood there for what felt like forever, and then disappeared into the forest. When dawn broke, Christina called for help. Investigators came out. Measurements were taken, based on where its head reached the window frame.
All right, guys.
Do you think that what you saw that day was standing about where Renee was?
Actually, where she has it right now, that is even.
That's it? We'll come outside and take that measurement.
It stood well over 7 feet tall. Whatever it wasn't human. What makes this even more terrifying? Christina's encounter happened not far from where Joe Coca and Vanessa Gutierrez had their traumatic run-in with a similar beast. Same region, same eerie presence, same paralyzing fear. Could it be the same creature? It doesn't walk on all fours. It didn't growl or snarl. It just watched, like it was studying her, waiting, as if it knew the exact moment she would look out that window. Christina has lived in these woods her whole life. She knows bears, coyotes, mountain lions. Nothing comes close to what she saw that night.
But you've really stumped me here because there's nothing else that it could be. If you saw what you saw and you weren't dreaming, that's the only thing it could have been.
I think Christina had a very close and scary encounter with the Sasquatch. In fact, I think she had an encounter with the same Sasquatch that Kirk and Joe and Vanessa also encountered.
Since then, she hasn't been the same. She keeps her windows covered, sleep with the lights on, and never, ever opens the door after dark. The forest has eyes, and Christina Arcoleta saw them. Imagine being in the middle of nowhere, Dry Fork, a remote area of wilderness tucked deep in America's heartland. No traffic, no towns, just tall trees.
Dry Fork. We were here about 6 weeks ago in the Red Cloud area. We found a couple of bedding spots that looked like some large.
Miles of silence, and a sky so dark that it makes you feel like it is trying to keep secrets. But to the Red Cloud team, that silence was anything but peaceful. They weren't hikers, they weren't campers. They were investigators in the world of unexplained encounters. On this trip, it wasn't ghosts or UFOs they were chasing. It was something far more dangerous.
You know, you got to be out there looking for Bigfoot in almost all conditions, I believe. And it was extremely cold last night.
Bigfoot. It began like most of their expeditions, silent and calm, a bit too quiet. Cameras rolled, flashlights swept the underbrush, and radios came to life with check-ins. But the deeper they went into Dry Fork, the more the woods changed. The energy, the pressure, the pure weight of the place. Something was off. Then, the howls began.
Could have been, could have been. Sure sounded like one.
They were not coyotes, not wolves. These were deep, guttural, and loud enough to shake the trees. Each one sent a fresh jolt of fear through the crew member's spine. It wasn't just the sound, it was the feeling behind it. As if something massive was telling them not to come closer. And then, something moved.
I know there's a lot of guys out there that would film that and say that's a suspect Bigfoot activity, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say...
Caught in the camera's low-light feed was a figure, tall, broad, and fast. Too fast. It ducked behind a tree just as the cameraman spun around. Nothing. Just thick bushes and pitch black beyond the limit of their lights. But the forest wasn't done.
That root system has to get a certain size before it starts sending up the really good shoots.
And asparagus is so long-lived.
Rocks began to fall near the group. Not natural, not gravity. Thrown, purposefully, from the trees.
Remember when we went up there and I found those ones last year? I cooked all those ones up and they were excellent.
Well, I know that those morels smell really good.
The crew froze in shock. You can hear it in their voices, half adrenaline, half fear. Someone observed that this seemed like they were being hunted. No one could be heard laughing it off. That's when one of the investigators caught it with night vision.
That's awesome.
Oh my gosh. He was going to town on this tree. Wow.
A towering shadow, partially blocked by a bush, standing still, watching, not running away or trying to hide, watching.
If we find anything on those cameras, like I said before, we will show them at the end of this video. Keep on watching. We're going to keep on squatting.
Do you see that? Someone asked, breathless. The camera zoomed in on a grainy but unmistakable image. A broad shape, shoulders are too broad, and glowing eyes reflecting the infrared. It wasn't blinking. The team moved away slowly, respectfully.
On it and see a Bigfoot, chances are by the time I get my camera up and zoomed in, so I might as well be hunting with it on the other end of the camera.
No one wanted to run, in fear that it might start following or hunting them. You don't run from a predator, especially not one that's been here long before we showed up.
We're gonna do night investigation, and then tomorrow we're gonna hike in and pick up our game cameras.
The rest of the night, quiet, dead quiet, too quiet. And that's what scared them most. Back at camp, the team reviewed the video, each clip darker than the last, and each one raising more questions than answers.
See it? Yep. Multicolored. You got grays and browns, going from gray.
What had followed them? What had stalked them through Dry Fork? And more importantly, was it still out there waiting for them? One thing's for sure, they went looking for answers and instead found something far more real than a myth.
These are old.
Way old.
But they're big.
This video was shared by the Rocky Mountain Squatch YouTube channel, shared by someone named Kenneth. The morning was calm, too calm.
At the end of the video, I was walking through camp early morning when I felt like someone or something was watching me up on the ridge.
Kenneth, walking through his campsite by Carson River, felt a strange feeling of being watched. It was a guess, an instinct that most of us would ignore. But Kenneth's gut told him otherwise. Up on the ridge, something didn't feel right.
So he zoomed up in there with his cell phone video, obviously, and...
So he pulled out his cell phone, zoomed in on the area, and began recording. Little did he know, he was about to capture something extraordinary. It started off normal, as most strange encounters do. The camera zoomed in, panning slowly across the ridge. At the far edge of the frame, something moved. A hulking figure, muscular and broad, stood there, seemingly frozen for a moment. It was so tall, so imposing, that at first it seemed like it was completely out of place in the wild.
To show you zoomed before I stabilized it, because sometimes it's a little clearer. I mean, he's zooming way up there with his cell phone.
And then, in a crazy moment that left Kenneth frozen, it reached up with one arm, grabbed hold of the tree and pulled itself up smoothly. What was strange wasn't just the creature's size. It was how fluidly it moved.
A football player-sized person with all their pads and everything on and hoist themselves up into a tree. All right, I'm going to play it.
Despite its size, the figure hoisted itself up the tree like it had done it 1,000 times before. Impossible for a human or any known creatures. Kenneth's daughter, who had been reviewing the footage later, was the first to spot it.
Show you the zoomed-in clip. And then after the zoomed-in clip, I will stabilize the zoomed-in clip. I just wanted...
Initially, Kenneth had missed it. But once she pointed it out, Kenneth realized the gravity of what he had captured. The footage was grainy, But the figure was undeniable. Was this a person? A huge one, maybe, but the way it moved didn't match anything human. Was it Bigfoot? Could it be? No one was certain, but the video was beyond anything normal.
Okay.
As the video zoomed in and stabilized, the figure became even clearer. It stood taller than any man, its shape wide, bipedal, almost like a football player wearing full gear, but without any equipment. And then the most shocking part of the footage.
You're kind of walking around and then boom, up into a tree. It's just crazy. That thing's huge.
It climbed the tree with the strength and mobility of something far more powerful than any human. The zoomed-in, stabilized video revealed the incredible sight once more. The figure's movement was fluid, and the strength it showed defied what should be possible. Whatever it wasn't like anything they had ever encountered before. Bigfoot or not, it's big, it's fast, and it's up in a tree. That was the final thought as the team reviewed the footage once more. But one thing was clear as day.
Very Bigfooty. It's out of the ordinary, unusual. If that's a...
The truth was out there, and this was a clue, an important one. Kenneth had captured something that, no matter the answer, no one could ignore.
More time. Amazing footage. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for sending this in to us, Kenneth.
What if the creatures we've all dismissed as myths are actually just hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to be noticed? Diesel in New Jersey isn't your average outdoor channel. They aren't just here for the hike. They're here to take you into the unknown. Boots on the ground, cameras rolling, capturing what most of us wouldn't even believe. This time they return to Area 4, deep in the woods of New Jersey.
Second dead animal we've seen here.
Where?
Over here at the squirrel.
Squirrel?
A place they've visited before. A place known for strange sounds, unexplained figures, and something that seems to be watching from the trees. Come take a walk with them and see for yourself. As they step off the beaten path, the forest is still, too still. The kind of silence that presses on your ears. Then, suddenly someone mutters, "What's that?" Just barely off trail, something shifts. The group stops. Eyes scan the brush, but the answer comes back too quickly. It's a log. Maybe, maybe not. The shape blended too easily into the environment, suspiciously still, like something frozen in mid-motion. Watch for yourself.
A blue balloon over here. Watch this line. See, like blue balloon.
Tension breaks for a moment when someone calls out, "I think I see that animal we seen here." Whatever they saw wasn't a squirrel, but the reference shifts quickly. First squirrel, then, "I see a blue balloon." A child's party decoration out here in the middle of nowhere? Odd, but it's not the first time they've seen it. "The weird thing I visit every time I come here," someone remarks. A spot known to hold on to strangeness like a magnet. Then things get weirder. A squirrel leaps toward the camera, landing near someone's face. Jarring, random, almost symbolic. But it's dismissed as coincidence. Still, the moment shakes the mood. Nature's being chaotic. Or maybe it's being used as a distraction. Another group member casually says, "Look at that axe."
Spray rubber, my face. Ugh. It's on my glasses. I'll get it. I'll touch the lenses.
But it's not just any axe. It's placed, not dropped. Like it's been used or displayed. Right then, something shifts in the camera's focus. Watch for yourself. Between two trees, wedged into the bark, is a large shape. It's massive, brown, and doesn't move a muscle. Not windblown, not vibrating like the leaves around it. A brown, hairy giant. Almost part of the tree, almost carved from it. but the outline is too defined, shoulders too wide. The camera lingers, unsure. Is this the moment? Is this a Sasquatch or a Yeti?
What's that poop? Big ass X.
What stands out isn't just the shape, but the stillness. It's too still. Whatever it is, it's watching or hiding. And Diesel in New Jersey's team knows they've seen something not quite right. They don't scream, they don't run, they observe, they study. That's what makes their footage matter. They return to this area time and again because it gives them something. Patterns, symbols, and encounters that are just clear enough to keep you awake at night. Watch for yourself. As they move on, the team remains quiet, reflective. Even playful moments, mentioning poop, joking about squirrels, are just noise covering the unease, because once you see something that shouldn't be there, everything else starts to feel like a setup, a test. The forest begins to feel staged, like you're being watched from the wings of a play you didn't know you were in. This isn't a film set. There's no CGI, no scripted jump scare, just raw footage. A still figure near a tree that no one can quite explain. Balloons in the woods, squirrels acting strange, objects out of place. These aren't isolated incidents, they're layers of the same mystery.
Like blue balloon. And then the weird thing I visit every time I come in.
And every time Diesel in New Jersey returns, something new gets added to that puzzle. Watch for yourself. Not every video ends with a scream or a chase. Sometimes the silence is the scariest thing, the quiet after the encounter, the moment when the footage stops and the mind takes over. And that's exactly what this channel captures. Those subtle but chilling pieces that hint at a larger presence just beyond our understanding. The camera may turn off, but the woods don't forget, and neither will you. Watch again. See what you missed the first time. Maybe that log wasn't a log. Maybe it blinked. What if something's been living just beyond the tree line, watching us, but never making itself fully known? On the quiet edges of New York's Long Island, one man is asking that very question every day. Mike Colantonio, founder of the Long Island Bigfoot YouTube channel, is not your average Sasquatch hunter. He's a military veteran turned boots-on-the-ground researcher with a unique approach.
The most notable was they were just walking the trails.
He doesn't chase monsters. He builds trust. Instead of casting doubt, Mike casts gifts. Fruit, pastries, and even candy are left behind in remote forested areas in hopes that something or someone will accept his offering. But today's investigation, this one's different. Mike isn't in the dense woods or a mountain pass. He's on private farmland because someone called him in. Something strange was happening on this property, and it had been happening for years.
There was a tree, or they thought was a tree, right? Like a big tree that was just...
Watch for yourself as Mike begins surveying the farm perimeter and captures a strange structure deep in the tree line. A twisted, bent arch that resembles what researchers call a break. A structure commonly associated with Sasquatch territory markers.
Most of what's going on is audible. Just hearing things that...
The landowner had told Mike something chilling. One night while working outside, they saw what they first thought was a tree, but it moved, slowly, like it had intent, like it was watching them.
Fox in here forever. They've had birds of prey in here forever.
Mike listens carefully, never jumping to conclusions. But he knows what they saw lines up with classic Sasquatch behavior: perfect stillness, camouflage, and deliberate observation. As he walks the property, Mike stops near a gifting site he's visited before. What he finds there makes him pause. An old bait pile, tampered with. Something had taken the fruit, but not in a way a raccoon would. No gnaw marks, just gone.
Look at this. This is very typical. Not 10 feet off trail, we have...
He notices subtle changes in the ground cover, crushed grass, broken stems, and he marks these signs mentally. A trained eye like Mike's doesn't just look for footprints, he looks for patterns. Watch for yourself as Mike quietly scans the brush.
And snow load doesn't take trees and bend them under other trees.
And catches sight of movement behind the trees. It's fast, barely noticeable, but unmistakable to those who know what to look for.
It's back there. Right in that area. The best part about this place is I always have it to myself.
Moments later, Mike addresses something odd about the forest's energy. He's not alone. There's a distinct, almost emotional pressure. If you've followed his channel, you know he talks about this often, what he calls the quiet presence.
That would be like the tree right there, right? That they described, but it was darker. They said it was like a...
Suddenly, he stops. There's a structure near the base of a tree. 3 large limbs woven together like a low tent, not naturally fallen, placed. Mike kneels, examines it. This isn't wind damage, it's intentional. The type of formation seen time and again in Bigfoot hotspots. He documents everything but touches nothing. Then comes the audio.
We've seen that with the dogmen too. If I can find that photo, I'll drop it in here.
Off camera, the dogs from the nearby farm begin to bark, but not at Mike. Their attention is somewhere else, deeper into the woods. And then, a thud. Watch for yourself as Mike captures a distant knock. One, then a second, like wood striking wood. It echoes just enough to seem deliberate, as if answering the dogs. This is one of the most commonly reported Sasquatch behaviors, tree knocking.
I remember I was standing in this general area, looking up that way, and there's a ridge that goes up and over, and there was a...
Later in the video, Mike references something unusual, the possibility of a dogman. It's a cryptid many researchers hesitate to even mention, but he doesn't mock the idea.
Big orb. Confused me for a minute, to be honest with you.
He reflects on the shape described by the landowner, a tall, upright figure with a more angular face. Could this land be home to more than one mystery? Mike doesn't try to convince the viewer. He lets the evidence breathe.
Actually, there's a game trail right there.
His voice is calm, observant, and always respectful toward the land, the people, and whatever else may be listening.
How many people talk about these things and try to communicate them, and then just because it's on the news.
As the sun lowers, Mike offers one last gift to the woods, an apple, and places it gently at the base of a tree. He thanks the forest. Then he leaves. There are no flashy endings here, just questions, a sense that something real happened.
They watched the video of that part. I give them the highlights, reels of it. And,
but not loud enough for the world to hear it all at once. Watch for yourself as Mike exits the forest line and looks back one last time. He pauses, watching something only he can see. For those seeking real, respectful Sasquatch research grounded in experience and quiet observation, Long Island, Bigfoot offers something rare, a voice of calm in a field filled with noise.
There's stuff whistling over here. That might be a bird, but back that way there's something mimicking. So on this side there was like...
Could this farm be a meeting point between two worlds? What else might be roaming the edges of our known reality? Unseen, but not absent.
We're gonna have to come back here a few times because I forgot how good this spot is in the winter.
Under the cloak of nightfall, a young man set out on a path few would willingly choose. Not for fame, not for thrills, but for challenge. Beneath the towering trees and across the hushed slopes of Berkeley's ridgelines, Angel Diaz stepped into the shadows with a camera in hand and uncertainty in his breath. On his YouTube channel, Angel Diaz 365, this wasn't just content. It was a raw confrontation with fear, lit only by a headlamp and the flicker of a personal promise. He had just left class, drained and doubtful. The streets behind him buzzed with nightlife, bars full, parties rising. But Angel's night would be defined by something more primal. As the trail narrowed and city lights slipped away, the wilderness began to answer. Every snapping twig pulled his mind deeper into possibilities. The lonely crackhead in the bushes, the silence behind every tree, the sense of being watched. Watch yourself.
I'm going up there. It's so dark and scary. I've never ever done this hike at night. That's why I brought the headlamp, but dude, I'm literally scared of the dark. I just remembered. How is this gonna work? Probably literally my biggest fear is being in the dark by myself. Oh, I think I hear shit already. Why am I doing this?
His voice trembled, not from acting, but from an authentic reckoning with the dark. With each step, his headlamp painted faint outlines on uneven stairs swallowed by the forest. He questioned everything. Why was he doing this? Was a fitness challenge really worth walking blind into the unknown? His fear wasn't just cinematic. It was wired into him since childhood. Nightmares of being chased, locked doors he couldn't open, dreams where fear pressed closer than breath. This wasn't hyperbole. This was embedded trauma. Still, he climbed. Still, he spoke to the lens as if it were the only steady thing guiding him. Then it appeared. In the thickets ahead, movement, a massive shape, low to the ground with a tail slicing the air. He froze. It wasn't imagination. It wasn't a squirrel, not a shadow. Something real, something alive. A fox, a stray dog, or worse, something built for silence and death. A mountain lion? Watch yourself.
Bro, I hear shit. Oh my god, what is that, what is that? Dude, I think I just saw something with a tail. Dude, that's a fox. Or it can't be a wolf. Dude, I'm supposed to go over there.
Panic surged. Knife drawn, his instincts fired in every direction. Run, hide, continue. In a moment suspended between rationality and survival, Angel didn't run away. He moved forward. His Apple Watch couldn't confirm if it was a lion, but the fear in his voice left no doubt. The danger was real. His mind spiraled, but his feet kept moving. Plastic knife gripped, breath jagged, eyes scanning through fogged lenses of adrenaline. For many, this is where the story would end. A shaky retreat, a confession of terror. But Angel's story had another act. He made it past the shadow, and as the path opened, so did the view, a skyline awash in amber, a reward only seen by those who dared to climb past the fear. He paused, breath still short, heart still racing, and offered something unexpected.
Oh, it's just little reindeer. Bro, y'all were scaring the fuck out of me. Oh, I could breathe. Or at least these are reindeer. The other one, I swear I saw a big ass furry tail. But see, at least y'all know I wasn't tweaking. There is animals here.
Reflection. This wasn't just a hike, it was a lesson. That sometimes fear doesn't disappear, you just walk through it. The danger doesn't dissolve, you just stop letting it own you. Watch yourself as he turns the lens outward to the cityscape below.
We did it. We made it to the top. We made it to the top. Not gonna lie, I was a little scared, but we conquered that. Let me show you. See, imagine if I would have stopped just because I saw a little silly mountain lion.
Then back to himself. He had faced something primal, something ancient, and he hadn't backed down. For Angel, 75, hard wasn't just about cold showers and clean meals. It was about moments like this, when the only thing between him and failure was the choice to keep going. Angel Diaz's video isn't polished. It's not produced in a studio or cut with special effects, but it's honest. It's exactly what YouTube should sometimes be, a raw moment of humanity in the dark, on a hill, with a trembling voice still daring to narrate. If you've ever faced a moment where fear nearly stopped you cold, where your past traumas whispered, "Turn back," this video is your mirror. And maybe, just maybe, it's your reminder that the unknown isn't always the enemy. Sometimes it's the only way forward. 8 stories, 8 different people, but one chilling thread connects them all. They weren't alone. In the darkest corners of our forests, something is out there. It doesn't growl to scare you. It doesn't chase to catch you. It just waits and watches. Maybe Bigfoot is a myth. Maybe it's a warning we've ignored for too long. But if you ever find yourself alone in the woods, and the birds go quiet, and the trees begin to lean in, just remember, some legends walk, and they don't always walk away.